Hey guys, this is the second part of our Castle Magic tutorial series, and in this episode we are going to be going over the magic start detector, reflectors, timers, counters, and computers. Basically the rest of the invisible stuff that we didn't cover in the last episode. So let's get started. The first thing I'd like to talk about are the reflectors. So reflectors are things that activate it's basically something that lets you activate multiple things in the same kind of object, right? So you can do 8 things at the same time. In a magic reflector specifically, it will do them in order. To an extent, it'll try to do them all at the same time, but if there's something conflicting, it'll do them in order. So if you have a camera angle in one and a camera angle in the second, it'll do two, then three, then four, and so on and so on. But things that don't conflict, like effect spells like this, will all happen at the same time. So those are magic reflectors. The magic random reflectors can do 8 things at the same time, but they do them out of order. Um, but unfortunately, it's not a true random, so they'll do it in the same pattern every time it's activated, but only do one of them at a time. So for those of you who don't know, randomness in a computer doesn't work the same as randomness in real life. Randomness in computers are kind of seeded to be one thing at a time. You can offset that by doing a few things, but in this game it does have a pattern to it, and that is it will do random 7, 8, 2, 8, 2, 8, 8, 5, 7, and it'll continue on from there. I wrote those down earlier. I was experimenting with it, and it does seem to go in that pattern every time. So you can kind of guarantee that. So those are the 2 reflectors. Basically what you need to know is that these will do multiple things at the same time for you, and these will do them in a pattern that is not technically in order from 1 to 8, but a different pattern like I mentioned previously. So hopefully those are easy to understand. I will talk about this one just a little more. So for this one, because this is going to be important here, we are making this cast music notes over our backpack butler over here. So what's the next thing we want to look at? So that's going to be the magic start detector. Magic start detectors activate as soon as a new player has entered an area. So if there's no one in that area and someone enters via that be a teleport, through a monster dome, walking through the door, all that kind of stuff, it will start the activation. So in this case, it's going to activate our reflector that we had over here to cast music notes over this guy. So let's demonstrate that now. There you go. So it's a little chain reaction there. Whenever we came in here or whenever we reset the world, it started that, which started our reflector, which made music notes. And you'll notice a lot of these things in here are going to be kind of various chain reactions of sorts. So that's start timers. They're really simple to use, but they also have a lot of versatility in what you can do with them. I use them a lot in my personal house, the one that I showcased in my very first video, to make a bunch of things disappear whenever people came back into the world, and stuff like that. So the next thing I want to take a look at is our magic timer and our magic counter. So here we've got our button, and our button's going to start our timer. Do you need a spell to start a timer? No, actually. Instead, you can do this if you wanted to, and that'll automatically start your timer and do all that stuff. But timers will activate every time your on duration ends and your off duration ends. These at least need to be 1 second each. That is the lowest number you can have, but you can also go up a number of minutes. It just depends on what you want to do. It doesn't have to do anything when it goes off. It doesn't technically have to do anything when it goes on either, but it's basically, I've made it to where it'll add a counter to our magic counter, which we'll get to in just a second. So yeah, you can make it start on if you want. you can have someone activate it either through a button, a reflector, or any of our other activators, and that'll start our timer. You can have it repeat. So once it gets to the end of our off duration, it'll go back to the start duration and go back and forth in a kind of cycle or loop, if you're familiar with programming and stuff. The next thing, we can display it on the screen if we want to. I'm not going to for this video because we're all going to have something on the screen in a second. But yeah, so every time that this on duration ends, so every 1 second, it'll cast this. And then it'll wait another second to go off, and then it'll cast this again whenever it finishes the on sequence. So that is our magic timer. So those counters we were talking about go into this magic counter item. Magic counters will, you'll have your test value that you want to put in. I put in 10 for this purpose. You can display it on the screen if you'd like. But basically, every time this is activated or every time a counter is put into this item, it will go up by 1. Okay, so you can do things based on if your number of counters in it equal your test value, in this case 10, if it's over your test value, or if it's under your test value. These can be really useful and a lot of neat things. Let me just remove that real quick so it doesn't happen every time we get out of here. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and display this in real quick. So again, we've got a button that'll start our timer. Every 1 second, this timer will add a counter to this, and then we'll see that counter on the top of the screen because I've decided to display it. So let's watch that in action. So we press the button. Every second, we'll get another counter, 3 counters, so on and so forth. So that'll just keep going basically forever. And we can do whatever we want with that. So that is the start, timer, and the counter. And the last thing we want to take a look at is the magic computers. Now, magic computers are where Castle Magic gets a bit more complicated because you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. This is how you do like and ors if you're familiar with programming and stuff like that. But the main thing to know is that magic computers take 2 signals. Okay, and you can get those signals from any activator. So for instance, we have this magic brazier, and if it's in the ice brazier state, it will send signal 1 to our computer over here. And if this brazier is in its fire state, it'll send the second signal to our computer. And whenever we get both of those signals, so if both of these are in the right state, we will do something. So in this case, we add another signal to a different computer over here, right? So this is basically how I made our combination lock in the house that I showcased in the first video. Very useful for a lot of puzzle areas and stuff like that, depending on what you want to do. So yeah, so computers can do something whenever both signals are present, whenever one signal or the other is present, whenever one signal is present but not both signals, right? So if I had signal 1 and signal 2, it wouldn't activate, but if I had signal 1 only or signal 2 only, it would activate this. You can also have it when it's not signal 1, right? So if I had signal 2 going, or if I had nothing going, this would activate, or not signal 2, so the same thing, but with signal 2 instead of signal 1. And when it's neither. So when I have no signals going to this, it'll do something, right? So those are the main things you got to worry about with a computer. I've got basically the same setup over here, except it is for fire and for storm, respectively. So that'll be signal 1 if it's in fire, signal 2 if it's in storm. And then if it's both of those, it'll send a second signal to our computer over here, and that'll activate a reflector if we have the signal coming from here and the signal coming from here. So I know that might sound a little complicated to some of you, but honestly, once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. So we had ice over here. Oh, sorry, that is the one but not both signal that just went off. I was testing that out earlier. So we've got the ice here. Okay, so that's sending signal 1 to our first computer. And now we've got signal 2 in this first computer as well. So both of those are activating and sending over to our second computer. And then over here, we make this fire. So we've got signal 1 in this one. And we turn this to storm, we got signals 2 in that one. And then you'll see that now that we've got both of these sending to this one, it activated something, right? So we got a little lightning bolt as our kind of reward there. So let's just go ahead and do that one more time. And there you go. So I hope that all made sense. I hope this over here made sense. Again, we looked at the start detector, what reflectors kind of do. I went over kind of the pattern that random reflectors follow to an extent because it's not a true random, but it is an out of order, one at a time sort of thing. Then we've got the magic timer and the magic counter stuff. And yeah, so I hope that made sense to y'all. Again, this stuff can be kind of confusing, but I did my best to explain it, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So, in the next video, now that we've done all that stuff, I think I'm going to go over the spells, like the different spells you can use. So you've got like action spells, effect spells, utility spells, and computer spells, and we kind of went over those with our computer setup. But the rest of them I'd like to take a little bit of a closer look at in the next video. So anyways, without further ado, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.